What it means to be holy to God is to be constantly engaged with His commandments, to be surrounded by His divine light, and be committed to living out the lifestyle that He envisions for us. Now, we are physical beings in physical bodies, although, of course, our spirit soars above. God has placed us in a material realm. And therefore, just as our practices need to be spiritually bound to God, we also need to be physically bound to God in our physical bodies. And so just as there are spiritual and metaphorical laws in the Torah, there are also literal and practical laws that we need to carry out, even on a daily basis. 3 of these very important laws are the laws of Tefillin, Mezuzah, and Tzitzit. And I want to talk to you about all of those 3 today and give you an understanding of the law as it is written in the Torah. The first law is that of Tefillin. The word Tefillin is derived from the same word as tefillah, prayer. Prayer, meditation, judgment. That is the purpose of wrapping ourselves in these verses as it is written in the Torah. So take a look here at Exodus chapter 13, verse 9. And it shall be for you as a sign upon your hand, and as a remembrance between your eyes, so that the Torah of Yahweh, the law of God, shall be in your mouth. For with a strong hand Yahweh took you out of Egypt. Now there are 4 locations in the Torah, 4 paragraphs that discuss this law of Tefillin. And so this is the first one in Exodus chapter 13, verse 9. The second source is also in chapter 13. And that is going to be in verse 16. And it shall be for you as a sign upon your hand, and as an ornament between your eyes. For with a strong hand Yahweh took us out of Egypt. So all the way from the time of Exodus, we are told to bind the words of God upon our hand and between our eyes, so that we will remember His commandments and remember His redemption and know that He is our God. There are 2 more locations in the Torah that discuss this law of Tefillin. The next 2 can be found in the book of Deuteronomy. The first one in Deuteronomy is going to be in chapter 6, verse 8. And you shall tie it as a sign upon your hand, and it shall be as an ornament between your eyes. And the 4th source is in Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 18. And you shall place these words upon your hearts and upon your souls, and you shall tie them as a sign upon your hand and as an ornament between your eyes. And so here we see 4 separate locations in the Torah where we are commanded to tie these words around our hand and place them as an ornament between our eyes, as a sign and a remembrance to know that God is our Father, our Redeemer, our Creator, and our God. And so I'd like to demonstrate to you here how it looks to put on the tefillin. So here we have the hand tefillin. Inside of these boxes are the 4 scrolls written with the 4 paragraphs discussing the law of tefillin. And so what you have is the 4 locations in the Torah written on a scroll inside of these boxes. So when I tie this around my arm, I'm now going to be binding these words upon my hand as it is commanded in the Torah. I'll bind my middle finger. The middle finger is your symbol of strength, your largest finger. And here we have a binding of the arm, of the hand. Again, the hand being our mode of action in this life, the thing that we use to act upon the world. We bind that to God. And now, to place the ornament on my head between my eyes. Now, just kind of a fun fact, the way that the tefillin are traditionally made and bound. If you look here on my hand, you will see the letter Shin. And if you look here, you will see the letter Dalet. And here, you will see the letter Yud. That spells Shaddai, which is one of the ways to refer to God as El Shaddai, God Almighty. That is the name of God that describes His power of limitation upon us and the subjugation that we have to God. And so as I bind myself in His commandments and His words, I am recognizing that I'm completely submitted to Him. And so here it is, the tefillin, the binding of our desires and our thoughts, our vision, our entire essence to God. And that's what His commandments are about. Place these words upon your heart and upon your soul as a sign, as a remembrance, and as an ornament. Because this is truly our beauty, and our commitment to God is expressed not just through our emotional and spiritual connection to God, but through our physical portrayal of what it means to be a servant of God and what it means to be a priest of God, to be dedicated to Him, mind, body, and soul. We live in a world that's very fast-paced. People are running on the rat race, on the circular wheel, so many distractions, not a lot of time to meditate, not a lot of time to sit in concentration. But the goal of wrapping yourselves in the tefillin, and by the way, there is no specific time of day that you have to do it, or no specific way, just on your hand, between your eyes, and recognize, take in the moment to sit there in concentration and devotion and meditation. There's nothing you have to say. You can use your own words. You can say the Shema prayer, which is beautiful and contains the words that are actually written in the boxes. But at the end of the day, all that you need to do is take that time. As God says, tie up your hand and place an ornament between your eyes with these words to remember Him and His covenant with you, the fact that He's created you and that He has expectations from you and that He has commandments that we need to follow, not to use our own judgment in the face of God's judgment, because He knows what's best for us, for our souls, and for our bodies. And we are completely in His hands at all time. And it would serve us very well to remember that and to follow His commandments. And every Jew is obligated to wrap these tefillin. Now, the second commandment I want to discuss is that of Mezuzah. Mezuzah means doorpost. And there are two sources in the Torah that discuss our obligation to have the words of God written upon our doorposts. In fact, two of the paragraphs regarding tefillin are actually shared with these two paragraphs regarding Mezuzah. And so they are consecutive commandments. Wrap these words upon your hand and between your eyes and write them upon your doorposts. And so the first source is Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 9. And you shall write them upon the doorposts of your houses and your gates. And the second source, Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 20. And you shall write them upon the doorposts of your house and of your gates. These words should be written on our doorposts of our homes, of our gates, when we walk in and we walk out. As it even clarifies here in verse 19, and you shall teach them to your children, to speak of them when you sit in your homes, when you walk upon the way, and when you lay down and when you get up, all the time, everywhere. Parents are told to teach their children to know these commandments well enough to engage in a constant dialogue with your children, to teach them and educate them about God and His commandments, so that we should be surrounded by His words, and we should be constantly engaged in an investigation of His will and an attempt to understand God and His ways and follow Him to the best of our ability with all of our hearts and all of our souls and all of our resources. Here is a Mezuzah scroll. This is the scroll with these words written upon it that would be placed in a box on the doorpost so that you can have these words upon your doorposts. As you can see here, you have the two paragraphs discussing the commandment of Mezuzah. This one is written in Hebrew, and here you have the commandment to write these words upon your doorposts of your homes and your gates, to be constantly aware of God and His commandments, both literally and metaphorically, surrounded by God and His words and His directions for us on how to live our lives correctly. And finally, the third commandment that I want to discuss here is that of Tzitzit. Tzitzit comes from the word tzitz, which means a blossom. And in the case of a garment, it means a tassel, like a blossom coming out of the corners of your garments. So I'll read it to you here in the book of Numbers, chapter 15, verses 37 and 38. And Yahweh said to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, They should make for themselves tassels upon the corners of their garments for their generations. And you shall put upon the tassels of the corner a blue wrapping. So as you can see here, on the tassels of my garment, I have a blue wrapping. The blue string wraps the tassel, and therefore fulfills the commandment as it is written. To continue, verse 39, And it shall be for you as tassels, and you shall see it, and you shall remember all of the commandments of Yahweh, and do them. And you shall not pursue after your hearts and after your eyes, which you stray after them. Now this is so important and speaks right to the heart of what the meaning of this commandment is, and really the meaning of all the commandments. Remember God and remember His decrees, because if we're going to pursue after our hearts and after our eyes, then we will stray, even though that our hearts are our emotions and our eyes are our sight. Doesn't matter. We don't know better than God. As human beings, we are so limited in our senses and our ability to understand and perceive that what we need to be doing is relying on God and His judgment for us, not pursuing after our own ideas and our own desires. Verse 40, So that you shall remember and do all of my commandments, and you shall be holy to your God. I am Yahweh your God, which I have taken you out of the land of Egypt to be to you as God. I am Yahweh your God. And so there you have it, the commandment of Tzitzit, as it is written in the Torah. To be fully encompassed with God and His commandments is to live in a constant state of worship and devotion to God. These are the commandments that He gives to the children of Israel, to the nation that He commands, that we must be a nation of priests, a nation that's holy and upholds the laws of God to the highest level. Most Jews don't even observe the commandments. And this is very sad because it removes us from what it means to be truly connected to our Lord, to God, who took us out of Egypt, who took us out of slavery, who made us free, who made us great, who made us holy, who gave us wisdom and understanding. Ironically, the kippah, the yarmulke, is not even a biblical commandment. It's a nice tradition, I suppose, to recall that God is above us, and it's a good identifier to point out that you're Jewish. But that's not even a biblical commandment. Tzitzit, on the other hand, are absolutely a biblical commandment. And so we need to have our priorities straight and understand which commandments come from God, what is truly important to uphold in this life. And if we have clarity on the commandments and their sources, we won't be swayed and confused by all of these other external sources. Rather, we will observe the commandments as they are written, because that's what matters, to follow God and His ways, to remain bound and tied to Him in all aspects of our life.